Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and here we are yet again, ladies and gentlemen, finding ourselves in the middle of yet another rework. Now, just want to start by saying, first off, any game that's approaching the 10-year-old mark is going to change with time. New things are going to be added in. New items, new mechanics are going to enter into a game in order to keep it fresh with age, which of course will require other game mechanics to be reworked. Warships is of course no exception to that. You can look at any game that's gotten anywhere near a decade old and still be active. Things have changed in that game. Now, what we're talking about today, the rework we're talking about today, isn't simply some old mechanic or some old system being reworked. It's a system that's already been reworked. That's, of course, CVs. So if you've been living under a rock, we are, of course, in the middle of a CV ReRework. According to Wargaming, if their testing goes well, they plan on actually implementing the changes that we're all testing right now on the Clan ST server sometime later this year. If I had to bet, probably late this year, fall, winter-ish time. That's when I would suspect that this would come out, right? Simply so Wargaming has enough time to polish it, do some more testing, and who knows, we may even get a third round of testing before it goes live. I would like to see that for sure, but who knows? But anyway, so now I've already done a complete breakdown of the changes and such that are currently being tested in the second round of testing going on in the Clan ST server. So if you're interested in like a breakdown of what's changed, you can check out that video here. What we're talking about in this video is the player base's reaction to this round of testing and some rather fascinating takes that I've seen so far. So anyway, to give you guys an idea of how much I've played on the test server, I played for like 3-ish hours before I made the video where I went over and broke down all the changes and such, just to get a taste of what it was like. And I played healthy amount of CV, Shinano, and the Hakuru, along with the FDR during that session. But I also played a lot of surfer ships too, because I'm primarily, a battleship cruiser player. So I played some Puerto Rico, some Siegfried. I played mostly of the larger cruisers to kind of entice the carriers to strike me, so I can see how the AA and stuff was changed, and a couple of battleships too. Montana, GK, the classics that CVs love to go after, right? And then on that Friday night's live stream, in fact, the last Friday night's live stream, we pretty much played on the test server the entire night. Again, mostly playing large cruisers and battleships again to entice the CVs to strike and see how the AA and such has changed. So that's where I'm coming from, just so that you guys know that. Now, again, if you want to know my 2 cents on all of the changes and such, you can check out that video. Has changed a little bit since then, because I have played a lot more of it since that first video, but we're going to talk about that. Anyway, the player base's reaction to it has been surprisingly mixed from what I've seen. It seems that there are some players that are convinced that CVs are on their deathbed now because AA is that good. It also seems that there's players that believe CVs have yet again been secretly buffed to being these absolutely just broken things that can strike ships with impunity. Your AA literally does nothing now, even though it's literally been doing nothing for the past 6 years according to these same players, so forth and so on. So it's interesting seeing that you've got two pretty polar opposite reactions from the player base. Now, after playing the test server for a little while longer and such, I can confidently say that this testing could have been done better. Now, I know I just said I can confidently say that, but hear me out. So the way that the test server works is that you log into it, and unlike previous versions where you got all the stuff you had on your main account on your test account, this time you got every single tier 10 ship in the game that except for even remove ships. Like, you got every single tier 10 ship in the game on your account to try out on the test server. there's some problems with that. First off, something I noticed is that you had a lot of players just taking tier 10 ships they didn't have. Like, oh, I don't have a Kitakami. I'm going to take that into battle. Oh, I don't have a Burgon. I'm going to take that into battle. Oh, I don't have a Shikishima or a Incomparable or whatever. I'm going to take that into battle because I don't have that on my main account. So you had players that were just playing on the test server just to try out random ships, and they didn't really know how to play them. So that didn't lead to good matches, right? Then, of course, too, you had players that didn't really know how to play CVs, playing CVs, and playing CVs that they didn't really know how. I was mostly playing CVs that I had already played, like the Shinano and the FDR, and a couple of the German CVs along in there too. CVs that I myself have experience in, and I can compare them, to their non-reworked version, to their reworked version, right? Because I wanted to see, what was different. Clearly, there were players that were not doing that, like we talked about in my first video too. When I was being focused on by an MVR, a guy that clearly knew what he was doing, and a Shinano that clearly did not know what he was doing, it was very apparent that the Shinano player did not know what he was doing. So, naturally, the test there going to be a little skewed. Now, of course, it is, a CV rework test, so you do want players playing CVs anyway, but that on top of the players just playing the rare ships that they didn't have before, that they don't have their main account, that's obviously not really helping much. And then, of course, you had a real double-edged sword in there, which was the rewards that Wargaming was offering for trying out these new mechanics on the test server. You can get 2,000 doubloons and 11,000 coal by just playing 11 games on the test server. And there were clearly players in the test server that were just smacking W a couple of times and walking away from their computer so that they could quickly get sunk and go on to the next round and play 11 rounds and get their 2,000 dubs and their 11,000 coal. That was clearly happening too. So the whole test is a little skewed, in my opinion. Well, not really sure if skewed is the right word, but I'm not really sure the data that Wargaming is going to be getting out of this in terms of like AA damage numbers and such, considering, again, what was going on in the test server. But, again, on one hand, you certainly do want people playing the test server, hence why offering their rewards, and you want players, playing CVs and playing against CVs, so hence why giving everybody, tier 10 ships that they can do that on. Giving them every single tier 10 ship in the game, including premiums that have been removed. I'm not so sure about that, but, yeah. So, test was, I would say, not really done in the best manner. Giving players ships they have on their account probably would have been the best move, and maybe tossing in, CVs if they don't have CVs so they can try that out. So that's where I think some of these reactions are coming from. Because, like I said, if you have someone that doesn't know what they're doing in CVs, even with the new AA mechanics where, yeah, flak's removed, but, AA still does damage if you don't know what you're doing and you're just flying around in AA bubbles the entire match. That's not going to be do well for you, right? So you've got all that going on. You got some players saying, CVs are dead. Some are saying they've never been stronger than they are now. And you got some that are saying, oh yeah, my AA is working great. Now I'm shooting down tons of planes. So on top of all of that, you of course have the players that seem to chime in, no matter what Wargaming does with regards to trying to balance CVs or really anything in the game, according to these people, Wargaming just can do no right, You've got these players saying, why is Wargaming going through this again? Why don't they just admit that they were wrong and bring back RTS CVs where planes were finite, AA shot down aircraft, and all was good and right in the world? It's like, dude, have you lost your mind? Again? And this happened after the first round of open testing for the CV ReRework too. You had these RTS CV enjoyers saying, hey, RTS CVs were better. No, they weren't. In case, once again, you've forgotten what playing against RTS CVs was like, please roll the clip. Now, of course, what they'll probably rush into the comments to say is that, oh, these CV players were rare, and, this didn't happen every single match. Sure, it didn't happen every single match, but it still happened. Happened plenty of times. The amount of times I've been crisscrossed, applesauced by, a Midway back in the day in my Montana or my GK was plenty of times. And yeah, sure, I might have shot down 5 of their planes, but bro just removed me in 1 strike, right, from the match. I think that's worth losing 5 planes. Like, the CV still had planes, in the hangar and such. Like, yeah, sure, they're dead in the squadron, but a good CV player, didn't really matter to them losing a handful of planes. They got a friggin' tier 10 ship with 1 fell swoop. Keep in mind, too, you had 4 or 5 squadrons to play with. You could have them anywhere in the map, spotting, doing whatever. I mean, the fighters were just free spotting at that point. Especially, a good CV player could deplane the other CV, and now your CV is utterly useless. So, yeah. And I understand that there were some good aspects about the RTS CVs, the limited planes. You could set the CV on fire, and, they couldn't launch planes anymore. And it felt like your AA did something when it shot down a couple of planes, because, those planes couldn't magically be printed in the carrier. I get all that, but, look, the good parts of what you remember about the RTS CVs do not outweigh the bad parts. I'm not exaggerating when I say a good CV player back in the day could win the match for his team single-handedly. That's not an exaggeration. They were that busted when in the hands of a good player. And, yeah, so it's always entertaining to see those commentators pop up. Thankfully, it seems like this time more people are hitting the, dude, you're definitely having some skewed memories there, right? Because it was not that great back in the day. But anyway, so it's an interesting reaction that we're seeing from the community through and through. Now, I do think, after having played it a little bit more, that a lot of the things that Wargaming's trying to address with this CV ReRework could be done by tweaking the current system we have in place. The feeling of AA not doing anything, I can tell you where that comes from most players, is the fact that when a attacking flight flies at your ship, you shoot down 3 or 4 planes, and then the planes get replaced by planes from the rest of the squadron, right? It's like, God, I shot down 4 planes, but I'm still having 6 torpedoes slung at me from whatever CV that these planes are attacking from. In the rework, once you attack, once your planes get done diving from their scouting height to their attack height, that's it. Whatever planes you shoot down, they do not get replaced by the planes from the rest of the squadron. That is something that can surely be implemented in the current version of CVs without having to do this big rigmarole rework, right? That seems like something that they could implement next week if they wanted to in the current version of CVs. And that would help a lot with the perception of my AA is not doing anything. Because now when you shoot down planes from that squadron that's attacking you, that's it. You've taken away, 4 torpedoes, right? Shoot down 4 planes, take down 4 torpedoes out of the attacking flight, or, however many torpedoes that plane's carrying. So it makes it feel like your AA is most certainly doing something. And I do think the automatic AA defense is a pretty neat mechanic in terms of trying to deal with CVs that keep kicking the same target over and over and over again. The more they attack you, the better your AA becomes. That's pretty good. And honestly, on the rework server, it's a pretty noticeable buff when you get that 60% buff to the damage that your AA guns are doing when it pops. And it automatically pops, and it only runs when you're being attacked by planes. So that's great. And I do also like the new manual AA where you don't have to worry about, selecting a side for your AA to focus fire on. You just hit the tilde key, or the tilde key, however you pronounce it, and your AA around your ship is buffed for, a few seconds. That's pretty good. I like those changes. And again, these are changes to me that could be implemented in the current version of CVs, and it would work pretty well. It would help to cut back on a lot of frustration. Now, of course, naturally, the biggest complaints, and in my opinion, the most frustrating thing about CVs is, of course, just the incidental spotting that occurs with CVs, or accidental or secondary spotting, whatever you want to call it. By simply flying their planes around the map, they can spot, the entire map in a few seconds. That truly is frustrating. The amount of times I have been trying to flee from a situation that's not exactly favorable to my survival, and yet John's CV flies by going to strike somebody else. I get spotted. It's incredibly frustrating. Or John's CV shoots out one of them little fighter planes, right, just to keep me spotted. And naturally, they're right on the edge of my AA, right outside of my AA's range or something like that, right? Just right on the edge to keep me spotted. It is truly frustrating. That, I can understand, that does take a little bit more of an in-depth, look and rework to really handle that. So that's the point where I'm like, yeah, they could easily implement some of these other changes, but not really sure how you fix that. Maybe, and they were working on it, giving the plane some type of limited spotting mechanic, which did make it into the rework with the scouting mode. But they were talking about giving some type of consumable that lets them spot for like 30 seconds or something from their travel height. And of course, if they want to vastly limit their spotting, then obviously AA. Well, how do you work with that? And I guess that's where we get the travel mode from. I guess maybe if they're in some ship's AA range or something, maybe they can spot it. I don't know the answer to that. So that one's a little bit more of an understandable, that's going to take some figuring out to get right, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, it's been interesting seeing the reaction from the player base for sure. Then going on to play the mode some more, looking at what has been a very interesting round of testing here on the final day of this second round of open testing for the CVs. So I think it's safe to say that the player base's reaction to CV ReRework 2.0 is fairly mixed at this moment. We'll see what happens from here. I'm hoping that whoever is in charge of this takes their time, listens to player feedback, and makes good improvements to the system. And it's a lot of changes. It's a big change, and it most certainly needs to be done right if Wargaming is going to go ahead and introduce this later this year like they are claiming to be planning on doing. So guys, let me know what you guys think about the CV ReRework now that we're on the final day of testing. If you played it some more, have your thoughts changed? Let me know all that good stuff in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday and wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.